Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is the topic of are all conservatives bigots? So, for this video, I'm going to explain in a simple and straightforward way so people who aren't familiar with this topic can understand it when it comes to the topic of are all conservatives bigots? So now that I mentioned that, let's get started. So, when it comes to the topic of are all conservatives bigots, the simple answer to that question is no, not all conservatives are bigots. And the reason why I say that as a left wing person myself is I've noticed there's two types of conservatives, okay? There is the old wave who know what conservatism is about. Those are the ones who are the racist ones. And there's a new wave who've become misled, especially because of the radical left, versus moderate left people like myself, the radical left, of course, who have pushed people who normally would have been liberal to becoming conservative, okay? And that's the one I'm talking about today, the second type, okay? The new wave of conservatives, okay? And that's the truth of the matter. And the reason why I say this is because historically, when you look at how trends have been going and you know, um, in recent decades, everything from the 1990s to the 2000s, before the mid 2000s when this whole woke crap started, okay? The truth of the matter is, when you look at how society was like back then, you know, historically, evidence was actually proving from the studies that were being conducted at the time, in like especially a perfect example would be 2008, which oh my god was a long time ago. It's like comparing 1950 to 1990 with how much the world has changed since then. But yeah, when it comes to 2008, there was actually quite a bunch of studies that indicated that the new generation at the time, millennials, okay, were actually becoming more and more liberal, and not just becoming more and more liberal, they overall were more predominantly liberal than previous generations of people were when it comes to their opinions on a lot of different topics and so on and so forth. And it wasn't just one study, this was numerous studies that indicated that, that the newer generation were becoming more and more liberal, okay? For crying out loud, okay? Now, when we do the studies, a lot of those people being millennials and even Gen Xers to a lesser extent, we look at it nowadays, we realize a lot of those people are now becoming more and more and more conservative. And the reason why I believe they're becoming more conservative, because you can see by trends, a lot of them are starting to vote more and more and more for the right wing, to be quite honest with you. The reason why I believe that is because people are sick and tired of the radical left. Because of the left, how it is now, is not how it was when I was growing up, okay? This whole culture of getting offended by everything, first and foremost, this whole pushing of communism, secondly, is the reason why everybody's getting turned off by it. Like the thing about this new radical left wave that's coming across, they get offended by fucking everything. Okay, you could have a black person as the villain for a movie, and they say, "Oh, that's racist," or you can have a black person, for example. I don't even know like how these people come up with this type of stuff. You could have a black person who might serve as a bodyguard for like um a movie or something, just a random bodyguard, and they'll say that's racist, okay? Or they'll say, this is hateful to LGBTQ plus, and you shouldn't say the word retard and call people fat and all this type of crap. Like, who gives a shit about those things? Some of those things are in your head, and some of those things are just a case of just people being mean. People can be mean all the time. You can't make it wrong for someone to call someone retarded. Like like to sum it up, they're just have a culture of getting offended by every little fucking thing, and it's really annoying. And that's why so many people are leaving them, as well as their push for this whole communist agenda. A lot of the people on the left, the radical left at least, have, which communism is an ideology. You can even look it up through history, for that matter. It has always failed. There's not a single country that has ever embraced that ideology, political ideology to be more exact, that has ever succeeded. They've all failed. Yet, even still, a lot of these left wingers are trying to push this ideology on our people, you know? And of course, the majority of people, let's be honest, might not necessarily all the time be the smartest when it comes to a lot of topics, in honesty. But the majority of people, at least when it comes to this topic, are like, okay, let's not take a risk here. Let's not take a chance, to be more exact, embracing an ideology that if you put yourself in it, it's going to be really hard to get out of and all that type of shit. Because well, it's just like getting on a totalitarian nation. Like or like freeing yourself from a totalitarian nation. To sum it up, what I'm trying to say here is that why don't is that they don't want to embrace an ideology that that's going to be extremely hard to get out of if you, of course, support it in honesty. The truth of the matter is that's actually very smart. The majority of people are smart enough to know that, but a lot of people don't know that, and that's dumb. It just doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. And with how much technology and stuff is advanced, if you get yourself in a situation like that, it's going to be next to impossible to get out of it. You know, for crying out loud, okay? If it turns out to be not the way you want it to be, because a lot of these people don't even know what communism really is. So the truth, to be honest with you, this radical left wing that's coming across are screwing everything up, and that's why no one's joining the left anymore. You know, and just in general, not just joining the left, but people are leaving the left wing, even though, in all honesty, realistically, we're actually historically at least when the left wing was overall more moderate, was the best party. Because the truth about conservatism in itself, historically, doesn't work. Okay, conservatism has never worked and never will work. For that matter. Okay, conservatism, is an ideology that's about the idea of keeping things the same. It's not as bad as communism, to be quite blunt and honest with you. That's just on a whole nother level of crappage. But conservatism in itself is an ideology that's obsessed with keeping things the same and family values and stuff like that, which is in itself doesn't work. And in itself, worst one of all, racism. And that's the truth of the matter, specifically if you're a person of color. You know, um, the radical right, and just in general, the right wing is just not a party that works. But a lot of people are joining because they don't feel like they have a choice compared to, of course, the radical left, which pretty much all the top politicians for left wing now are now radical. And that's what I'm trying to say here. So, what my message for this video is that us left wingers are going to have to start doing better, okay? At least ones who have a platform to get our message out there. We are going to have to start doing better. We are going to have to start becoming more moderate, okay? Focusing on things like getting offended by everything is not really needed, okay? Even when it comes to the topic of what's offensive and what's not offensive, all you need to do is draw the line, okay? Like, for example, let's not say the N word, like the word nigger, or for Asians, like the word chink, jap, or calling a rabs this particular derogatory name and all that type of stuff, whatever you can imagine that's actually a racial slur. That's an example of drawing a line. Instead of getting offended by things like calling someone retarded and this and that, like who cares? You know, that is the truth of the matter. So we need to draw the line for media of what's offensive and what's not offensive. Okay, that's what the left is going to have to do. We need to draw the line there, as well as realize all we need to do if we're not happy with the capitalist system is realize that we just need to have better regulation. Communism is not going to save you, okay? And that is the truth of the matter. It never will save um, you or anyone for that matter. Okay, every nation that has embraced it is going to be, a shithole. Okay, just like Cuba. It's so sad because it's such a beautiful country, and I've been there. It has a very rich, interesting history and culture, and you go there and it doesn't look the greatest. Look at the infrastructure and just even how the people live, let alone the food, the quality of food, for crying out loud. Like they're not doing that well, and that's because they embrace communism. And I don't want people to embrace this ideology that just doesn't work, and not just doesn't work, never will work. Okay? So, in short, to sum up my point here, us liberals are going to have to get back to the basics, not focus on getting offended by everything, as well as, of course, realizing communism is not the solution. And the quicker we can do that, the quicker we can become more powerful of a party, and the conservative, racist party that's always been racist, for crying out loud, for all honesty, cannot become successful um, and get voted in again, to be quite blunt and honest with you. Because they've always been racist, and in the foreseeable future, they're going to still be racist. So let's vote in a party that actually works and is not a bigoted. Okay, and that's the truth of the matter. So this is the message I have for this video, and I hope you learned something. And that's all.